county, because once you know, then you can notice things that aren't right. If you don't know, you just drive on by and you don't notice. But unfortunately, a lot of the kinds of things that they're going to talk to us about tonight, usually people's response is, nah, which that's not good. So, welcome and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tori Berber Salazar, and we like to say in our office we're friends with everybody in the community, but crime victims are our best friends. They're our best friends. You really are. We love and adore you guys, and we are better people, we're better attorneys, and we're better at serving our community because of you. So we want to thank you all, and anytime you call us, you know we're going to come running because we just love and adore you, and we're so grateful for everything you do. And so we're going to talk to you tonight about human trafficking. This is a very tough presentation. I have never done it. I've probably done it 100 times with Suzanne. She's probably done it 100,000 times. And every time people leave crying, including me. So it is. She brings it home. She's going to talk to you about the pathway and the journey that people are experiencing and the cruelty in which it's occurring. Wow. And the unfortunate thing about human trafficking, it is often a family business. It is often a mother selling her daughter or her son. It's a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. It's a cousin. There's some sort of connection or nexus between the individuals that allows them the access to an individual and to convince them that this pathway is a healthy and successful one, when in reality it's extremely cruel, extremely cruel. So with that, before we get started with Suzanne, I was going to see, do you have any questions for me? I can't stay super long. I apologize. My mom is not feeling well, so I'm taking dinner to her tonight, but I'll be here for a little bit. Do you have any questions for us before we get going? After the presentation, you'll have a lot of questions. But I'll tell you this. I come in 99 down Fremont to get my coffee at Starbucks on Fremont. And as Suzanne, I call her almost every morning. Every morning, there are young girls behind the Bank of America there on Fremont and Wilson in that AM/PM or Chevron, whatever it is. Every morning, there are young girls out there. Every morning. At 6 a.m. It is a 24-hour business. If you look at the parks, you're going to notice a lot. And people are in crisis. Homelessness continues to rise. People are close to losing their homes, and they start to make desperate decisions and start to think that there is a fast track. Unfortunately, too, the mismarketing of this profession, as they call it, is cruel. It implies that you will have a life of wealth and success, and it'll all be great. And Suzanne's going to show you today that that is not the truth.
Right.
So with that, I'm going to let her get started unless you have any questions for me, and then we'll get going. I just can't tell you how grateful I am for Suzanne Schultz in my life. Not only as my friend, I mean, she's, she single-handedly built the Family Justice Center, and I think a couple thousand people a month are now using this resource or coming through the building. And it is nonstop action-packed. As a matter of fact, it's starting to get worn down. But that's a testimony to her strength, her courage, and her dedication to this community. So thank you all for being here.
I got something to say.
All right.
We want to thank you because we've never had a district attorney that went out into the public. And I mean, I can text her every day. I text her. I bug her all the time. But she's the only DA that's ever gotten involved in the community where you can call and talk to her and she'll help you with any questions you have. If you don't understand something, she wants to make sure you understand and takes the time out to explain it to us. Yeah. So that's what's helped us to get as far as we have to share with other families is how the law works, and she wants everybody to understand that. So she's out there. I text her every day, or not every day, but I text her a lot, and she's always right there and answers right away. So, if you have questions and don't understand something, she will answer them for you. And we've never had a DA do that before, ever. And I've been here 65 years. So thank you.
Well, so I just, as Tori had said, I gotta be honest, this is a pretty graphic presentation. It's the subject matter is pretty tough. But the images you're gonna see, some of the language is gonna be kind of tough. And, I'm not gonna be too graphic, but I do want to prepare you for this. And the reason that we do this presentation is because I tell people all the time, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to speak to you in a community setting, because I got to be honest, if I'm speaking to you in our office, then it's really too late. Somebody's already been through this, a family member or a friend's child or somebody has been through this, and then our conversation is completely different. Our conversation then is about trying to help the child heal. So the presentation is called Is Your Soul for Sale? And we got the title after I had the opportunity to interview a survivor. Now, before I get into that interview, I do want to let all of you know that in our county, here in San Joaquin County, we have something called a Human Trafficking Task Force. And we've been together now, we're just going on our 7th year together. And the Human Trafficking Task Force is comprised of over 60 agencies. From the federal we have the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, we have parole, then we have our local law enforcement agents, probation, all of our community county organizations, Child Protective Services, Behavioral Health, DA's office, we have law enforcement, we have medical partners from Dignity Health and from San Joaquin General Hospital, and we have our nonprofits. It's basically all of us that work with human trafficking victims and with their family members. We are coming together every month to discuss the issues that we're seeing. And to further the mission of the Human Trafficking Task Force as a whole, we created multiple work groups. So we have the advocacy work group, and so all of us as members of the task force are required to serve on a work group to further the mission of the task force. So we have the advocacy work group, we have a medical work group, we have a law enforcement work group, we have a legislative work group, civil legal services, and we also have a volunteer action team, because there's something about this subject that makes people want to get involved. But we want to make sure that the community, if they get involved, they do so safely. We don't want people to go out and drive out on Wilson Way in their Honda and put themselves into harm's way. And so what we do is through our volunteer action team, we have organized community events where community members can get involved to battle this issue. And then we have the education and outreach work group, which is the work group that I chair. And our job is to do exactly what I'm doing tonight. Go out and share the information about the cases and the things that we are hearing that victims are going through. And we do that for a multitude of reasons. One, we want to make sure as parents that you know how the traffickers are approaching kids so you can play an active role in protecting your child. We're doing a lot of education at the schools too, at the junior high and high school levels especially. And mostly it's because we want young kids to realize these are the ways that the traffickers are approaching you and the methods that they are using to try to pull you in. And we want young people to realize, I get it, people treat you sometimes like your kid, you don't know anything, but we tell people, the honest truth is this, the youth is who they are after, and we want you to be aware so that you're safe. And the bottom line is this, when we started doing this presentation about 6 years ago, most people thought that human trafficking was an issue that went on in the Ukraine, or in Thailand, over in the Philippines, or something that you only see in the movies like Taken, right? And they didn't think that it was an issue that we had here. And so the fact of the matter is this, if the DA's office prosecutes somebody for human trafficking, we didn't want people to say, oh, she must be making that up. That's only the things that happen in movies. We want to educate a jury pool as well. So we started this presentation. We created this, as I said, about a little over 6 years ago. And we got the title, Is Your Soul for Sale, after I interviewed Angel. Angel, when I met her a little over 6 years ago, she was 32 years old, and she was 8 months pregnant, and she let me know that this was her 9th pregnancy. Angel let me know that she had 7 children, and she let me know that of her 7 children, 5 of her children were what she called trick babies, which means she had been impregnated by someone who had purchased her solely for the purposes of sex. And she had no idea who the fathers were, because she was required to have sex with so many people every day that she didn't know who the fathers were. She let me know that 2 of her children were the products of relationships where she thought she was going to be loved, but those partners ultimately turned her out. And turning her out means put her out there for sale in the sex trafficking industry. And that was the situation also with the pregnancy when I met her. She thought she was in a relationship where she was going to be cared about. The person was trying to turn her out in the Bay Area, and she just didn't want to be in that life anymore. And so she fled to our community, and then our paths crossed a little while later. She let me know that she had lost one of the children after a beatdown from her pimp for failing to hit her quota. So the quota is a dollar amount that the victim is required to make every day. Sometimes in the industry it's called a trap. It's what you trap, well, how much money did you trap today? But a lot of times it'll be referred to as a quota. And they have to hit that quota before they're allowed to have any food, any water, before they're allowed to use the bathroom inside, before they're allowed to sleep, before they're allowed to bathe. And that's every day they have a quota. Maybe if you're in a poor community, you'll have a lower quota, or a wealthy community, you'll have a higher quota, but no matter what, there will be a quota every day that must be met before you can have any of those basic things: food, water, sleep, a shower, using the bathroom. And so Angel said that during one of her pregnancies, she was having a hard time hitting her quota, and her pimp was angry with her because she'd already been out on the blade, and that's what they call it. It's called the blade. Sometimes it's called the track or the stroll, and basically that is the street that is known for prostitution. And that's the slang term for it, the blade. And so Angel had said that she'd been out on the blade for over 24 hours, and now she was starting on a second day, and her pimp was angry with her because she hadn't hit the quota required for the day before. And so she said he threw her to the ground and he kicked her repeatedly in the abdomen and ultimately killed her child. So Angel let me know that she had fled here to try to get away from a pimp that was trying to turn her out, the father of that child, when I met her. And so I asked a lot of our trafficking victims if they would tell me a little bit about, you know, their family history and their life before the life, as they call it. And that's the slang for being put out into this industry is called the game, or it's being in the life. And so almost all, not all of them, but a good majority of them indicate that they have prior history of trauma. Either parents and or a parent that is out of the household due to incarceration, drug use. A lot of them have prior child abuse, either molestation or beatings on their own, or chronic exposure to domestic violence. A lot of it is prior unaddressed trauma and they're trying to cope with it. But what happens is that unaddressed trauma ends up leaving them vulnerable for these traffickers. And so Angel was kind enough to share with me her child history, and so she had let me know that she'd been born in the Bay Area. And unfortunately, her mother was struggling with addiction. Angel said that she suspected, she didn't know for sure, but she suspected that she herself may be a trick baby herself, because her mom, she doesn't remember a time when her mom was sober. And so she says that she always remembers her mom hustling, trying to get money to support her drug habit. And so her mother's drug habit kind of reached its peak when Angel was about 9.5 years of age. And at that point, they'd been homeless a couple of times, they'd been sleeping in their car, couch surfing, but Angel, as the oldest, she'd been placed into the position of being like a mom to her younger siblings. And even though she was only 9.5, she said she actually felt like a little woman already at 9.5, because it was her job to take care of her little brother and little sister, make sure they had food. Her job was, if mom had been gone for several nights and there was no food in the house, her job was to go down to the corner market and steal a cup of noodles or top ramen or the cheese and cracker packets, and that's what she and her brother and sister would live off of. And so it's that vulnerability that left her open and made her a target by a predator. And I gotta be honest with you, since 2004, I have worked in the Family Crimes Unit, and we prosecute domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault, stalking, human trafficking, elder abuse. And so basically, we prosecute where the victims have been children all the way to senior citizens. And what's unique about our unit is it's a specific person that has been targeted, right? It's not somebody stealing your car, breaking in and stealing an Xbox or jewelry. It's a person who's targeted specifically another person and then really focused on vulnerabilities. And so really, I gotta be honest with you, I've watched all these cases for all these years, and I really watch how predators work. And the predators go after their prey. So for example, if somebody wants money, they want to smoke dope or whatever it is, and they don't want to work, either because they're too strung out or whatever it is, but they need money. What they're going to do is target people in our community that have money, right? And so they're not going to go after the 16-year-old working part-time in McDonald's. They're not going to go after the starving college student. What we see a lot of the predators do is they go after the people in our community that have the accumulated wealth, and that's the senior citizens. Because you've already put in all your years of working, you've made your investments. And then what they do is, we see a lot of the predators, they go where that prey is. So we see them going to assisted living facilities, senior centers, and then they sit and they watch. And the predators go where the prey is, and then once they're where the prey is, they go for the easy prey. They're not going to go after the senior who's constantly surrounded by friends and family and has a lot of support. They're going to look for the senior that's all alone. We also see, unfortunately, sometimes they go to churches. And they sit at the churches and they watch and they see which senior shows up at church alone. Drives to church alone and then sits in his back pew all alone. Because they're not going to go after the senior that, again, is surrounded by family and friends and is supported. They're going to wait until there's an announcement that, you know, Sister Margaret's husband, Brother Henry, passed away. We all know that they've been married for 67 years, and we know that they never had any children, so we need to come together to support our sister at this time. Right now, big target on Sister Margaret's head. And so then what we see is the predators groom. And the grooming is always followed by an ask. And the techniques and what they do during the grooming depends upon the prey. So for seniors, a lot of us realize what's important to a senior is to continue to be able to live independently. I want to live in my home where I raised my children, surrounded by my things, watching TV that I want. I want to be independent. And so a lot of times, knowing that, the predators will offer and groom to help the senior maintain that independence. You know, I know, Sister Margaret, that you're not driving anymore because of your glaucoma. So if you would like, I would be happy to pick you up and take you to church. If you'd like, I can take you over to the pharmacy to pick up your medications. I can take you to the grocery store. And if you want to give me your address, I'd be happy to swing by and mow your lawn, right? And again, all the things that will help a senior to live independently and ingratiate them, the predator will ingratiate themselves to the victim. But then the grooming is always followed by the ask. So now they've gotten into the senior's life, and then there's going to be maybe an ask. And it might be something like this. You know, Sister Margaret, the other day when I was driving you around, I noticed that my tires are starting to get a little bald. And I would feel terrible if anything happened, but I'm kind of short on cash this month. And I was just wondering, I hate to ask, but I was just wondering, by chance, could you help me out with a little bit of money so I can get new tires to make sure that you're safe while I drive you around? And of course, the senior is like, oh my goodness, of course. You've been so great to me and you've taken such good care of me. Let me go ahead and write you a check for new tires, and I'm going to put in a little extra cash for the gas that you've been spending and your time, right? And so the senior feels, oh, I would love to do that. So that's the kind of thing that we see. On the other end of the spectrum, you get the people, the predators that want to touch a child. Same thing. The predators go where the prey is. So we see those predators being at schools. Sometimes they're going to be volunteering as coaches, swim coaches, gymnastic coaches, dance coaches. Maybe they're going to be scout leaders. But basically what they're going to do, same thing. Go where the prey is, same thing. Wait and watch. Look for the kid, not the one who's at practice with family and friends supporting him. Look for the child that walks to practice all alone and then leaves, and then sometimes is kind of looks disheveled or looks very sad. And what they do then is, again, they start looking for the easy prey, and they find this little girl that's a little sad. And they ask her what's going on, and she says, Mom and Dad are going through a divorce. Or, Mom's got a new boyfriend and I don't like him. He's mean to my mom and he's doing bad things. And when I told my mom that I didn't like him because he's doing bad things to me, my mom told me I was a liar. Right? Those are all going to be indicators that this is a child that's vulnerable. So, unfortunately, in Angel's case, that's what happened. When she was home alone, she stood out as a vulnerable victim. And so soon there was a knock on the door. She opened the door and she kind of recognized this guy. He was a guy that she'd seen him driving around. He would sometimes be at a neighbor's house. And he looked at her and he said, hey, baby girl, I just want to know, is your mom home? And she said, no. He said, is your mom and dad home? And she said, no, my mom is not home and I don't have a dad. And he says, well, you know, that's cool. I just want to come in and use the phone. And so she said she let him come in, and he actually did use the phone. But then right away, he started the grooming. And what he did to her was, after he used the phone, then he came to her, and she said that he knelt down in front of her. And he stroked her hair, and he said, baby girl, you are so pretty. You're such a good little girl, baby. Thank you so much for letting me use the phone. And he said, baby girl, are you hungry? And of course, he's a predator. He already knows what the vulnerabilities are, right? And so she goes, yeah, we're really hungry. And he says, well, you know what? I got $10 right here. And I'll give you this $10. All you got to do is come on over here and give Daddy a little bit of sugar. Give me a hug and a kiss on the cheek. And Angel told me that she was really focused on the $10 because she was so hungry. She's like, you know how much food I could buy with that $10? And so she said she was focused on that $10 and she went in to give him a hug and a kiss. But she said what really got her was that he hugged her back because she hadn't been hugged in so long. And so then he says, you know what, baby girl, if you want tomorrow, I'll go ahead and bring you some McDonald's. And Angel said at 9.5 years of age, she had never had McDonald's before. And so she was really excited. She says, yeah, I want some McDonald's. And he said, okay, I'll bring some McDonald's tomorrow. And he showed up that night, or the next day, with the bag of McDonald's. And he says, hey, sweetheart, I got your McDonald's right here. Why don't you do this? Why don't you come on over here and sit on Daddy's lap, and we'll eat the McDonald's together. Again, the grooming, right? Here's your McDonald's. Now I need you to do something for me. And it's something the child would not have normally thought of, but they think this person's been so nice because they're doing nice things for me, so I'll say yes. And so ultimately, she said that he continued to groom, bring her candy and ice cream and toys. But every time the ask became more and more and more inappropriate, and ultimately he was getting to the point that he was raping Angel. But remember I told you, Angel felt, she said, like she was already a little woman, because she was the oldest child, and she was taking care of her brothers and sisters, so she thought, I'm now, 10, and this guy must be my boyfriend. Because when I look at the older girls in the neighborhood, they're holding hands like I hold his hand. They're sitting on their boyfriend's laps. I sit on his lap. We hug. They hug and kiss. So he must be my boyfriend. The fact that he was 29, it didn't dawn on her, she said, that it was inappropriate because she had no guidance. So she said one day she was talking to some adults and somebody was talking about a boyfriend, and so she wanted to join in the conversation, she said, and she goes, well, I have a boyfriend too. And they said, you're 10 years old and you have a boyfriend? And she said, yeah, I have a boyfriend. And they're going, really? Who's your boyfriend? And she says, John, he's the one who has that blue car. And they're like, oh, John's your boyfriend? He's like almost 30. Okay, so what do you and your boyfriend do? And she looked at him and she says, we have sex. And they said, wait a minute, you're only 10. What do you think that word means? And then she proceeded to explain that she knew exactly what it was because that's what John had taught her how to do. So they reported him to the police, and he was arrested, and he was prosecuted. But for Angel, she was like, wait a minute. There's only one person that's making sure I have food. There's only one person that tells me I'm special. There's only one person that tells me I'm a beautiful girl and that they love me and that I matter to. And now you're telling me that's wrong. So she said she really didn't understand. And although, yes, he did things that hurt sometimes, he always told her afterwards what a beautiful, special girl she was and how much he loved her. So she said that she really didn't understand, and then she began running away. And then by the time she was 12, she was a chronic runaway. She'd been placed in foster care because her mom was still using. And so Angel said by the time she was 12, she was on International Boulevard in Oakland. And that is a street known as the Blade or the Track or the Stroll in Oakland. Generally what we're seeing now is basically if you're new, if you're young, new stuff, they're going to put you on the street that's going to be close to your age. And that way the purchasers know that you're new, young stuff. And so you're going to be placed on 12th, 13th, or 14th Street to indicate your age range. If you're a little bit older, then you're going to be put over on 15th or 16th. And if you're old at this, you're going to be put on 17th or farther. But that's how they market them, is placing them on certain streets to show their age. So when Angel was 12, is when her first pimp found her, and he looked at her and he said, baby girl, you can't be out here by yourself, baby. It's way too dangerous out here. You know what, baby girl? You need someone to take care of you. You need somebody to look out for you. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to be your daddy. And I'm sure you can understand for Angel, coming from a neglect background, someone saying that they're going to be her daddy was very, very powerful. So at 12 years of age is when Angel got pulled into this industry. Now, I want to remind you, when I met her, she was 32. And she was just trying to get out of it. That means she'd been in the life for 20 years. She'd been in it longer than she's been out of it. And I remember when I first met Angel, I was interviewing, we were talking, and I bought her some lunch from Angelina's. And I said, hey, here's some lunch. And she goes, what's that green stuff? And I gotta tell you, in certain ways, she was almost like a small child. Right? If you have a little one and you introduce them to food and they're like, what's that? And she was kind of like that. She was like, what is that? Why is that green? I said, it's pesto. I go, just give it a try. If you don't like it, you don't have to eat it. And I remember when she tasted it. I'm looking at a 32-year-old woman. And when she tasted the pesto, you ever see your little one when they try something, they're like, that's how her face was. And she was almost childlike in that regard, but she could totally hustle and game us, right? But with such a mix, because her exposure to other things has been so limited. And so I asked her one night to go out to dinner because we were going to talk some more. And I go, where would you like to go to dinner? And she says, I want some more of that green stuff you gave me. I said, okay. So we went over to Angelina's, and I'll never forget it. We walked in, right, and I'm in a business jacket, right, coming from work. And I walk in, and I said, hi, 2 for dinner, please. Right? And so the hostess, I remember she looked at me, she goes, okay. And I remember her eyes went to Angel, and she was like, and she just looked her up and down, right? And I thought to myself, Angel's probably been looked at like that all of her life. Right? And every day you can see that judgment, and I can only imagine what that does to you emotionally and for your self-esteem. And so we sat down, we were eating, and she got some more of that green stuff she loved, right? And I remember what she said to me that night was, Suzanne, and she was just saying it kind of matter-of-factly, she goes, when that guy was getting at me, and he was hurting me and damaging me, she goes, but I didn't know it, because I was a baby. She says, but I had no idea what he was setting me up for. He was damaging me and setting me up for the later sale of my soul. So that's where we got the title of this, because we really want to let people know. The gals you see maybe walking on Wilson Way or on other tracks, right? And you think, ooh, there's sometimes layer upon layer upon layer of unaddressed trauma that those folks have been through that have left them vulnerable to that. And then what happens is they get painted in this corner where that's all they know, right? Angel's options are exceedingly limited. She hasn't been in school since she was almost 8, right? So she's set up to she can't get a regular, she can't even get a job at McDonald's, right? So the trajectory of their life gets changed. And they, unfortunately, sometimes don't have many other options. So that was the reason that we got the title of this soul, or the title of this presentation. So what we end up seeing is, just like Angel didn't identify as a child abuse victim, I want to let you know, because of the introduction, almost all of our youth sex trafficking victims do not identify as a sex trafficking victim, right? They identify maybe, they say they're dating the person, and so maybe they will identify as a domestic violence victim, right? Because maybe somebody sees a guy beating up on a girl, and maybe what it is she's getting beat down by her pimp because she didn't hit her quota. But if the police roll up, and then she says, oh, hold on, I don't want any charges filed against him. It's my boyfriend and I were just arguing about money. But if the question is asked, although she likely would not say it, if the question is asked, what about the money? She's not probably going to say, well, I tried to come home without hitting my quota. I've been out here on the blade for 18 hours and I'm just really tired and I'm supposed to bring home $1,200 and I only had $900. She's not going to say that. She's just going to say, oh, we were just arguing about, the rent money. And so, and a lot of times the reason why they identify as the domestic violence victim is the method and the technique that's been used against them. And it's because sometimes they're introduced to this person by a friend. So we've had situations where we had a 13-year-old girl going to get her nails done, right? And as she's sitting in the nail salon getting her nails done, and this is the kind of young girl that is, she looks at the entertainment magazines, right? She follows all of the celebrities and the rap stars and all that, and she's just really influenced by pop culture. And so as our young girl is sitting there getting her nails done, a 20-year-old female walks in who's absolutely gorgeous. Looks like she's walked off the pages of a fashion magazine. And the 20-year-old looks at our 13-year-old and says, oh my God, baby, you are absolutely beautiful. I love your hair. I love your eyes. You're so beautiful. What are you? You got to be about, what, 19? And of course, then our 13-year-old was like, no. But they take it as a great compliment, right? No, I'm not 19. I'm only 13. And then the 20-year-old looks at our 13-year-old and says, I'm going to tell you something. Because you're so beautiful and you look old enough, I'm going to let you know, I'm here with a video production company and we're in town and we're doing a music video shoot. And it ends up 2 of our backup dancers from LA couldn't make it up. So the producer sent me out here to look for a couple of gorgeous girls that want to be in a music video, and I'm telling you, you got the exact look that the producers are looking for. And so, hey, are you interested in being in a music video? And of course, our 13-year-old was like, oh my God, yeah, I totally want to be in a music video. So then the 20-year-old says, well, you gotta let me take a picture of you so I can send it to the producers so they can see if they want you in the video. And so, but honey, I can see that you're just wearing t-shirts and a t-shirt and jeans, and I gotta tell you, none of the producers are gonna pick you wearing that. It's gotta be something kind of sexy. And so, you know, I just went shopping over at Victoria's Secret and I bought some new lingerie, and I bet you'd fit into it. You know, I'll let you have it so you can take the picture in it. So then what happens is this 20-year-old no longer looks like a stranger to our 13-year-old girl, right? Now, you're my friend. You're trying to help me. You got my back. You're gonna help me take a good picture so the producers will pick me. So the 13-year-old is now in the back. She's borrowed her 20-year-old friend's high heels. 20-year-old's like, turn this way. Go ahead and let your hair hang down your back and put your head back, right? And so 13-year-old's like, oh man, my 20-year-old friend, she's got my back. She's got my back, she's gonna help me. 20-year-old then says, hey, producers just saw your picture and they want you in the video, but you gotta come to the production party tonight. And I'm gonna let you know something. Don't talk to your mom and dad about this. Because our production company, we didn't go get all the permits so we could do video production in the city limits. And I'm gonna tell you, if your mom and dad show up and they start asking a lot of questions, producers aren't gonna want the hassle and they're just gonna cut you out of the video. All right, so then now they're encouraging the child, keep secrets. And so what ended up happening in the case is that now the 20-year-old says, I'm gonna see if we can get a ride. We gotta get over to the production party. And so the girl's like, oh, I hope we can get a ride. Next thing you know, this nice car rolls up in front of the nail salon. The friend leans in and says, hey man, I really need your help. This is my homegirl and we gotta get to the video production. She doesn't have a ride. Can you give me, my girl and I, a ride to the video production? And the guy's like, sure, no problem, I'll help you out. And so even though the 13-year-old had been told over and over and over, never get into a car driven by a stranger, she's like, this isn't a stranger because my friend, she's cool with him, so he must be cool. So she voluntarily got into the car, right? So 20-year-old is like, hey, you know, when they were in the car, she's like, I can tell you're nervous. And I'm gonna tell you something, if I can see that you're nervous, that's totally gonna show up on the video, and then they're gonna cut your sections right out of the video. So, you know, I've been in a lot of videos, and I want to let you know, I always do a lot better in the videos when I got a little bit of a buzz on. So why don't we start the party in the car? And so then what she does is she mixes up a drink, and she hands it to our child. So our child takes the drink, you know, and her friend's over there drinking. She's like, yeah, drink up. Except our child didn't realize that her drink had been drugged. So what ended up happening is she drank it, and she was rendered unconscious. And when she woke up, she was no longer in our community. She was in a hotel room. She had a sock stuffed in her mouth, and there was tape over her mouth, and she was tied up. And she was bleeding, rectally and vaginally. And she'd been gang raped while she was unconscious, but she had no idea what had happened to her until they played the video. And they said, now this is what's gonna happen. We're gonna send people in here, and you're gonna do whatever they want. And if you don't do what they want, then we're gonna make sure that this video of you being a nasty little slut gets put up on your social media. That's how this is gonna go down. So we've seen that very, very brutal introduction. But a much more common way is this manipulation. So maybe we've seen this, girls walking around in the mall together, right? So maybe you have two friends, gorgeous, right? Beautiful faces, and then you got their little girlfriend she's not as pretty, but she's sweet. So what the traffickers know is, hey, maybe that one doesn't get much attention. So they walk up to the girl that's kind of sweet, not as pretty as the other ones. And they look at her and they go, hey girl, you looking really good. Why don't you give me your number and I'll hit you up later. And right, she takes it as this great compliment that in the presence of her beautiful friends, they ask for her phone number. So she gives up her cell phone number. And then her friends are like, man, he's gonna play you, he's a clown, he's not gonna call you. But then what he does is he does call. And then he keeps calling. And so what we see is they start staying in contact with the child via social media. And so we see this. And I really want to let you know we've seen a lot of apps. So we see kids using TikTok, especially young girls using TikTok. And then what happens is if they don't have their settings, their privacy settings set correctly, then predators are contacting them in the chat feature within TikTok. Or we've seen young kids approached in Fortnite. Same thing, they're approaching them in the chat feature and then asking them to download other apps so they can stay in contact with them. And then they're constantly, man, girl, I can't stop thinking about you ever since I saw you at the mall. I keep thinking about those beautiful eyes. I could get lost in those eyes, right? And for a young adolescent, somebody saying these things for the first time, it's intoxicating. And so then what happens is, then you see the grooming start, right? And, well, that's really the grooming. It's, yeah, I can't stop thinking about you. I think you're the one. And then she says, well, my friends thought you were a clown and you're going to play me. And he's like, no, I'm going to treat you right because I think you're the one. And, you know, I want to treat you good. And I want to treat you like the queen that you should be treated. So, you know what? Why don't we I'm going to show your friends that I really care about you. So why don't you and your friends meet me and I'm going to take you shopping. So in front of her friends, then he takes her shopping. Maybe he buys her gets her nails done. Maybe he gets her eyelashes done. Maybe he buys her a new purse. Maybe he gets her a new phone. Maybe he gets her jewelry. Maybe he takes her for a shopping spree at the MAC makeup counter or at Victoria's Secret. And so she thinks, oh my gosh, look how much he loves me. But she doesn't get, right? But she's an adolescent, or he's an adolescent, and they get confused. And they don't realize that it's the same thing. It'd be like buying a little baby McDonald's or a teddy bear. Maybe that wouldn't work for a 13-year-old, but what would work is a shopping spree or getting your nails done or getting a new purse. It's the same technique, it's just a different item. And so now she has all this jewelry, all this stuff, and then what we see is if there's a stable household, the predator wants to break that up because a stable household is a block to them getting full access. So we see them offering up trips to Disneyland or San Francisco or LA. And then the child now is crazy in love with this person, they think, and so they just go. And then next thing you know, they're reported as a missing child. And the goal is to create chaos in that house. Because then what we see is, after she goes on that trip to Disneyland, if she comes back, then the parents are like, where have you been? You know what it is? Because you're talking to whoever that is on that cell phone. And you know what? If you can't use the cell phone correctly, then you're obviously not grown up enough. I'm going to take it from you and you're going to be grounded. And we see a lot of times the taking of the phone is the trigger that makes a child run. And then the trafficker's already given them another phone and now they have full access to them. So we've seen that happen. We also see, we've had a couple of cases that have come up where the traffickers are actually taking the kids down to Orange County. Sometimes, in a few of the cases, they've actually spent the day with them at Disneyland. And then after they're done at Disneyland, they're like, yeah, let me take a picture of you here in front of Disneyland with your phone. You know, that looks really good. You know, and hey, I'm going to go ahead and hang on to your phone because I want to let you know if you want to ride back to Stockton, you owe me $350. And the child says, what? Why would I owe you $350? Because I drove you down here. I got a hotel room. I paid your way into Disneyland. I've been buying you stuff all day. Money doesn't grow on trees. You want to ride home? You owe me $350. And the child says, but I don't have $350. And they say, that's cool. You don't have to worry about that because I know where you're going to get it. Hands her a pre-packed duffel bag with a bikini and stilettos and drives her out to the Blade in Orange County. So we've seen those situations. Or sometimes there's the threats of harm to family members. Oh, you don't want to get this money the way I tell you, then remember how you said your grandma lived over on Acacia Street? Sure would be sad if something happened to your grandma's house tonight, right? So we see threats of violence to family members or to children. And then we also see what happens during this romancing period. It'll be like, hey, you know what? Why don't you send me a couple of pictures of you in that outfit I bought you over Victoria's Secret. Get me through till the next time we see each other. So we see a lot of our youth, junior high, high school, they're sending these photos of themselves in their underwear or they're sending nude photos. But what we're also seeing is that pop culture is really kind of trying to glamorize it. And they're trying to make it seem like it's victimless. Like, you know what? This is up to you, girl. This is up to you. Right now, you got that gorgeous body. You can make the money while you got your body right now. It's your money, girl. You do what you want with your body. So they try to make it seem like this is her choice. This is her way to make money. But in actuality, it's grooming. And it's grooming us as a society to think that it's her choice. And a lot of victim blaming. So this is a song by Usher. And some of you may recognize it. And I don't like to victimize or villainize any music. But, you know, this song was very, very popular several years ago. It made it to number 28 on the Billboard Top 100. And Usher's a pretty mainstream artist. but I want you to read the lyrics as you listen to the beat. First two verses talk about what the boyfriend's going to say, but the third verse talks about what this true realize what it says, and I get parents who are like, oh my gosh, I was listening to that going to soccer the other night, right? And so that's the thing, is that, and I'm totally going to date myself, but I know when I was in high school, I knew the lyrics to every Commodore song, right? Every Earth, Wind and Fire song, right? And so the kids nowadays are, right, yeah.
I was at an Earth, Wind and Fire.
But right, so it's no different for the kids now. They know the lyrics to every single song just like we did.
Right.
And so what happens is, right, now she's made to believe that doing a little bit of exotic dancing, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just to make some money, right? And then she could be a model, and so what she's doing is she's doing that dancing so the money will rain in, so he can get professional portfolio pictures taken over to create her modeling portfolio, right? So she thinks this is all part, right, of making it so she can be famous. And then it's going to be the favor. Hey, baby girl, guess what? My buddy, he just landed the 2020 luxury car show down in Vegas. He's been seeing your pictures, and he wants you at the luxury car show. But baby, we need at least $1,500. And you know, while you've been doing that dancing, you know, and I've been advertising you and calling you Diamond, because that's what you are, you're a diamond in the rough. While I've been advertising that Diamond's gonna be dancing in Sacramento, and Diamond's gonna be dancing in Stockton, and Diamond's gonna be dancing in Fresno, you got some fans. And there's this one guy who's got it bad for you, and he keeps saying, hey, I wanna spend some private time with Diamond. But we let him know, hey man, she doesn't do that. But baby, guess what? Now, I gotta ask you for this favor, baby, because listen, this is what we need. This could be the launch for your career. This is everything we've been working for, baby. He's willing to spend $1,000 just for 1 hour of your time. All you gotta do is go in that back room and do something special. And right, and remember, the grooming is always followed by the ask. And she didn't realize, as he's getting her eyelashes done and her nails done and getting her hair done and buying her makeup and getting her clothes, that really what he's doing is he's dressing her up for the role that he wants her to play. And all of that has been grooming, and now the ask has come. So he asked her for this favor. And like I said, she never saw this coming when he asked for her phone number at the mall or got her number when she was at the nail salon. And then what happens is, and she doesn't see it coming, but then what happens is the photos that she sent voluntarily, then those photos, he uses them to do this. Put her up and advertise her online and sell her like she's a pizza. So, and unfortunately on the other side of the coin, what we're seeing is that the pimp life is actually glamorized, right? These guys are just ballers, they're players, right? And they're the ones that those are the ones that everybody wants to be cool like. But realistically, what it is they're enslaving people, sex slaves. And so here you see Snoop is listed as America's most lovable pimp on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine. Now, I do want to make something very, very clear. Even though you heard from Usher, and you're seeing Snoop listed here. Don't think that this is exclusively an African American issue, because we're seeing gangs across the board are going to this. Russian mafia, Asian gangs, Hispanic gangs, Caucasian, it doesn't matter. Criminal enterprises are going to this industry because it's so lucrative. Because if I'm selling firearms and dope to support the gang, I can only sell that Glock one time. I can only sell that heroin one time. But if I pull in a 12 or 13-year-old girl and I can threaten her family or her little brother, or I get her strung out on drugs just enough, I can sell that little boy or girl over and over and over, and I never run out of my product. And in fact, maybe what I can do then is use them to go back and go get their little brother or their cousin. So, so we see the criminal enterprises, and what they do is they divide up the industry, right? Somebody's running a massage parlor, somebody else is running a strip club, somebody else is running, as they call, street whores, somebody else is doing labor trafficking, make people sit on the corner selling flowers or strawberries for 18, 20 hours a day. So we see different criminal enterprises are running these groups. So here's a song that Snoop had put out on his perspective about the industry. So I want to call your attention to this line down here. Come rain, come shine, come snow if it's sunny, get the F out and go and get my money. I want you to understand what that means for victims. Okay, come rain, what that means is, I don't care if it's a blizzard here in Chicago, get out there and go get my money. Come shine, I don't care that it's 121 degrees here in Vegas, get out there and go get my money. What that also means is, I don't care if you have the flu, I don't care that your grandma died, I don't give a crap that it's your birthday. There's no days off. Get out there and go get my money. Now, for our young females, what we're seeing is that also means that there's no days off. So if you happen to be on your period, so be it. You're still gonna do it. And so what we see now, and we talk to our medical professionals, and this is what they're telling us. They're seeing the girls come in, and what happens is your bottom, so the bottom is the, sometimes called the bottom B, and her job is to recruit fresh meat and to train them or season them about this industry. And then what your job is to do is to, make sure that they hit their quota and that you report any infractions that they may do. But as we said, there's no days off. And so they don't care if it's rain or shine or if you have the flu. And again, they don't care if you're on your period. And so what will happen is your bottom or your pimp will take you to the dollar store and buy you a bag of these makeup sponges, and the girls will be ordered to stick that into their vagina up against their cervix so they can still engage in vaginal sex. And when we talk to our medical partners that are on the Human Trafficking Task Force, they let us know that they're removing these all the time at ERs. But what they thought they were seeing was a poor girl who could not afford feminine hygiene products. They didn't realize what they were seeing were trafficking victims. So that's the reality of the things that we're seeing some of the victims go through. And we have young gals that are working right now at the Family Justice Center. We have one girl that started in programming at 19. She just turned 20 during her programming. And she let me know she just found out that she's sterile because she had had a sexually transmitted disease for so long untreated that she now can no longer have children. And she just turned 20. And so we get people saying, well, these girls are choosing to do it because when I'm driving up Wilson Way, I don't see anybody running out in front of my car trying to get rescued. But the fact of the matter is, if they're a child, if they're under the age of 18, they can't consent to this. They are victims of child abuse. Now what hurts so hurtful to my heart is when I see the girl that's 26, right? She's been in this half of her life since she was 13. Yeah, she's 26, but her life was set up so she really wouldn't have many other options. So, and on the other side of it, there's books teaching people how to be pimps. So this book was in the hands of a trafficker, and you can see it's pretty beat up because he's been studying so hard. And so he had sections highlighted that he thought were particularly relevant. And so it says, if you can't read it, it says you either give orders or you take them. That's all pimping is control. And if you're a good pimp, you don't have to steal or take anyone's money by force, because the hoes will give pimps the money willingly. I want you to understand what the goal of that being a good pimp is. I don't have to beat my hoes to give me the money. I want them to already know that it's mine. And so that's what you want to do. You want to use whatever manipulation, whatever grooming you can to make them believe that this is something that they want to do for you. So maybe it is this, and maybe some of people have heard people use the slang, man, she's thirsty. There's literally something to that. When she is dying of thirst and she hasn't had anything to drink in 24 hours, she may be desperate. And if she hasn't eaten in 48 or 36 hours, if she hasn't slept and she's been high all this time, she's not even thinking straight, that's how you can get them to be compliant. And that's when you are deemed to be a good pimp. And that's the goal. Again, you don't have to beat your hoes to give you the money. You want them to automatically turn it over. And so what we're seeing is the kids that are losing their childhood. We're seeing females are victims in over 85% of the cases. But I want you to know, young men are not immune to this. We see young men are pulled into this same way, where they are blackmailed. We've seen guys that have been drugged and sodomized, and then they filmed it and then blackmailed the young boys as well. And then we see that nearly half of the victims are children, again, under the age of 18. We see kids are approached between the ages of 12 to 14. So any kids between the ages of 12 and 14 vulnerable to this, because the brain is not fully developed, right? They're still embarrassed, you know, if they see pictures, they're still, right? They just don't see the potential dangers because their brain is just not developed that much yet. So 12 to 14 is when we see a lot of kids approach, but it could be younger than that and it could be older than that, but that's an average. We're seeing a third of our runaways are introduced to this industry within 48 hours of being on the street. But I gotta let you know, a lot of the people that I've talked to, they've been approached a lot faster than that even. So how the victims are recruited? A variety of ways. Against that romancer, the one that's blowing up their phone, telling them that they love them, can't stop thinking about you. That's called a Romeo pimp or a finesse pimp. Then they got a helping friend, the one who's maybe gonna introduce her to the Romeo pimp, but the girl, our young girl doesn't realize that this helping friend works for the pimp. And in actuality, she's fully indoctrinated. She thinks she's the one that he truly loves, and that she's just supposed to train you so he can buy her more stuff. She thinks I'm the one that he truly loves because I get Daddy's B tattooed across my chest because I got his heart. You're only gonna get Daddy's B across your back because that's all you are, is a piece. But I got his heart, right? Or when I go out there and trick, he lets me use condoms because he cares about me. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't give you any, right? There's all sorts of manipulation that's used by the traffickers. So the helping friend is another technique. Again, fake job offers or fake trips are really, really used. And then there's that brutalization. That's called guerrilla pimping. And it could be any combination of these. The helping friend could be telling her, hey, let's go to the party so you can see him again. But then he is at a trap house where she's going to be kidnapped, beaten, gang raped. So when we talked to a bottom, I asked her, how do you know when you see a young boy or girl, how do you know that they're going to be open to this? And she says, I don't know. She goes, what I do know is this. I start running my mouth, and if I'm running my mouth and that kid's not walking away, I already know I got him. She goes, what I do is I keep talking until I can find out the weakness. Did somebody recently break her heart? Are mom and dad going through a divorce? Is dad in custody? Mom an alcoholic? Maybe they got some addictions themselves. Maybe they're getting bullied at school. Maybe they got some low self-esteem. Maybe he or she is the one that loves being the center of attention, totally would do anything to have their 15 minutes of fame. We'll use that against them. Or maybe they're just plain lonely. We'll go ahead and be their next best friend and we'll be their family. She says we use the vulnerabilities against them later. So these are some of the warning signs that we've seen with sex trafficking victims. This isn't an exclusive list. But what we see is there's going to eventually be some truancy because they're not going to be in school because that interferes with the life. We see that kids will have recurring STDs or they're constantly going to be looking for doing pregnancy tests. They're going to eventually come back branded or tattooed because the trafficker is going to want to show ownership. So they're going to mark them. And we definitely see there's going to be cell phones that have appeared out of nowhere. They're going to come up with a story and, oh, so-and-so's cousin or auntie gave her a new phone, or her parents bought her a new phone and she didn't want this, so she gave it to me. A lot of those kind of stories. And we'd also see the inability to make eye contact, because if I am owned, my job is to always look down and be invisible. And I definitely never look at another male in the eyes. Because if I look at another male in the eyes and I lock eyes with him, they believe then now that you own my soul as a male. And then that will earn me a beat down from my daddy because I've been eyeballing somebody else that I want to work for. I've been disrespectful to my daddy. I'm trying to choose up and choose somebody else that I want to work for. So this young gal from our community, she was owned by a Hispanic gang and they wanted her to understand. It's all about the hustle. It's not about you being loved. And don't get that confused. We also see that they will mark the body parts of a victim to show ownership. Who owns your mouth? Richie. You do anything with that mouth that gets money, who's the money belong to? Richie. When we talk to nurses and they talk about removing these sponges, they remember seeing tattoos of names on the inner thigh or across the vagina or across the buttocks of the child, male, female. So we've talked to a lot of the victims. A lot of them have been approached socially, sometimes at public venues, bus stations. Some of the kids are approached when they're walking home from school. And a lot of times all they do is ask for the phone number or their Snap or their Instagram account. That's all they want is a way to get a hold of you. And then once they do, they get a hold of you, then they keep working you, right? Sweet talking you. Hey, so where you been? You know, how you doing? You're pretty, you know, blah, blah. These are the very first texts that some of our trafficking victims got. And as you can see, they're not particularly threatening. It's, you know, your eyes are gorgeous, you're beautiful. So why does this industry exist? It exists because it makes a huge amount of money. Now, I want to let you know, we created this presentation about 6.5 years ago. There was a report that came out, we just haven't had a chance to update this. But now, back then, 6 years ago, they anticipated it was a $32 billion industry. Now they anticipate that it's a $150 billion industry. And it dwarfs what some of the major corporations were bringing in back in 2014. So if that number's gone up, I can assure you that this number for the US has gone up as well. So in California, when we created this presentation, we were one of the top 4 destinations, but in 2018, California became the #1 state in the nation with the highest number of reported human trafficking cases. Now, I gotta let you know, one of the things that I think has contributed to us having the highest number of reported cases is because education like this is going on in all sorts of cities throughout California. So I actually think that we have a more educated population who are recognizing it when they see it, and then they're reporting it. And I think that has contributed to us having a higher number of cases reported. These are hot spots throughout the US, but they change all the time based on what's going on. So wherever the World Series is, wherever the Super Bowl, NBA playoffs, NASCAR, rodeo, I gotta be quite honest, it's any event where men are in attendance, they're pumped up for a good time and cash heavy, that becomes the hot spot. Angel talked about a time when she and her fellow wifeys, they try to make themselves sound like family. They were all in St. Louis, and Daddy had decided that they had to get to San Francisco. And so the girls are required to make the money that it costs to get them to the next destination where they have to trip. And so Daddy calculated out and told them when they were in St. Louis that they had to work for 3 days. And it was 3 days straight. I'm not talking just a few hours each day, it was 3 days. And she said it was before they had online ads, so they basically had to walk the street for 3 days, waiting for somebody to buy them. She says, we went to the bathroom on the Blade. She goes, we crapped. She goes, we peed. She says, we ate. If Daddy brought us anything, he usually brought us like a Red Bull and some cocaine. She goes, but the only time that we weren't on the Blade was when we were on our backs doing a trip, and then we were back on the Blade. This is the circuit that we're seeing in California, but I gotta let you know that we've seen a lot of changes lately. What we're seeing now is the kids are taken up through Portland and up to Seattle. When they're going down, up and down 5, they're gonna be required to stop at truck stops and basically knock on the truck drivers' doors to ask them if they want a cab date. They're taken out into the fields to service farm workers for $20 a sex act. And then we're also definitely seeing our kids are being taken into Tahoe and Reno, and everybody now. It used to be some, but it is everybody now is being taken into Vegas at one time or another. So we want you to understand, and this next part's going to be kind of rough, but this is a call. And so we want you to understand that when we talk about human trafficking, it is going on here. And so this is a call that somebody had made, a young girl had made to our local law enforcement, to the Stockton Police Department, trying to arrange for her rescue. Now, for the parents of little ones, you know, I gotta be honest, this is gonna be pretty emotional, and so I'll leave it up to you as the parents, whether or not you think it's appropriate for your little ones to listen to. But I do wanna let you know it's gonna be emotional, because this little girl, she's gonna be she's in pretty desperate times. So this is her call to our local law enforcement.
I think if I could, it is very traumatizing. So if you're young, I think it probably is, and I'll be happy to stay outside and hang out with the kids.
I would say nobody younger than 12.
Yeah, for sure, 13.
That's too bad.
Yeah, sorry. And if your parents listen to it and they want you to hear it, then you can come back and listen to it. But we'll,
Go to the kitchen.
What about the cost? Kids' cost, right?
I can stay with them. And then you guys think it's okay where you can do these back.
Sunday, May 25th, 2014. The time, 4:29 p.m.
911. Oh, hello? Hello? Hi, I'm Joe Carpenter. Where are you? In California. Okay, do you know what address?
Sunday, May 25th, 2014. The time, 4:32 p.m.
So she hung up because she's not supposed to be on the phone unless she's arranging for a trip. But the protocol with Stockton Police, any law enforcement, is if someone calls and hangs up, the dispatcher calls them back. So this is the dispatcher calling the victim back.
Hi, this is 911. Somebody dialed. Is everything okay? Hello? Hello? Yes. Hi. Is everybody okay? No. What's going on? Well, I can't hear you. What's the address of the emergency? Oh, no, I can't help right now. Okay, what's the address? Where can I meet you at? Okay, what is your name? Okay, where are you at? Can I meet you there? Okay, where did you want to meet? Do you have, a hotel? Did you want to meet at a hotel? Yes, where are you at? Are you near Motel 6? Motel 6 off of what? Off of Plymouth? Off of, where are you at? What city are you in? What's that? I'm in Stockton. What city are you in? This is Stockton. You said Motel 6 off Plymouth? Plymouth. P-L-Y. Mm-hmm. Okay, that would be $160.
Sunday, May 25th, 2014. The time, 4:46 p.m.
Stockton, please, Christine. Hi, you're gonna be in the room, right? Can you tell me what color your car is? Act like you're telling me what kind of colored shirt you have on, or what your favorite color is. I'll be having on black shorts and some gray boots. So it's a black vehicle? Can you say yes or no? No. A gray vehicle? Yeah.
Sunday, May 25th, 2014. The time, 4:59 p.m.
Hello? Hi, I'm walking up to your door right now. He just left. Room number are you walking up to? I'm walking up to 121. He just left. I got all my stuff. He's in a car right now. What kind of car is he in, hon? He's in a Mustang. If you go right now, he's gonna wait for me. I don't know where he's waiting at. He's coming to text my car. It's gray. Gray Mustang? Yes. What race is he? Gray and black. He's light skinned, he's black, he has dreads, he has a light skinned girl in the front, and he got two dark skinned girls in the back seat. They're all prostitutes. He forced me to prostitute, but I want to go home.
Okay, I'm gonna get them over to you right now, okay?
Please hurry, I'm so scared.
And did he have any weapons?
Oh, I have no weapons.
What are you wearing?
I have a black shorts and a black tank top with some gray,
Black shorts and a black tank top?
yes.
Okay. Stay on the phone with me, I'm getting the officers right over to you, okay? Let me know if you see him. How did you come to contact with this guy? Do you know him? Do you know?
Yes, I knew him because like he was a nice friend of mine.
Okay, what is
And I
his
didn't know.
name?
I don't know his last name. I don't know his first name.
What is his first name?
Chester.
Okay, and the other females that were in the car, were they being held against their will, or were they?
No, I'm the only one. I'm only 17.
Okay, and I'm gonna get them over to you. Let me know when you see them, okay?
Okay.
What's that, hon?
I haven't eaten 4 days.
They had you for 4 days?
Yes.
So there's that food and water deprivation that we see in so many of our cases.
Do you feel like you need an ambulance at all?
No, I just want to go home to my mom.
In this case, he met her at a mall not quite 2 weeks before this and did all that grooming.
Officers, okay, you're the Motel 6 on Paris, right?
I see them.
Okay, I'm gonna stay on the phone with you until you get up to them, okay? Let me know when you're right with them, okay? I'm not gonna hang up, okay?
Okay. I don't know if they're watching me on.
That's okay, the officers, they have you, are you talking to them? All right, hon, I'm gonna let you go, okay?
Okay.
All right, bye-bye.
See here, the victim says, I see them. And she's talking about law enforcement. She knows is rolling on scene to help her. And even in the presence of law enforcement, she's still afraid of him. Because she says down here, I don't know if he's watching me. She doesn't even know where he's at. And she's still afraid of him in the presence of law enforcement. And this is after he's only had her for 4 days. But what you do is you take this combination of romancing him, getting him off kilter, then you don't give him any food, you don't give him any water, you introduce drugs, and you don't let them sleep. They basically don't even think clearly. Because she even said in there, he doesn't even have any weapons. That's how quickly this indoctrination can happen to these young people. Now, ultimately, he was caught. And because he was trafficking juveniles, he was sentenced to 21 years and 4 months. But I gotta be honest, the damage is already done, right? The whole conversation is completely different. And I tell people, I want to explain to you and show you why they are after our youth. Why they're gonna be after that 12, 13, or 14, 15, 16-year-old girl or boy. Because I can assure you, somebody wanting to make big bank off of pimping, they're not coming after me, a 55-year-old woman in elastic waist pants with sensible shoes, right? I can assure you they're not gonna be coming after me, right? But what they're gonna do is they're gonna get the one that's gonna be pliable, it's gonna be easy to manipulate, and is going to have the longest marketing time, and that's gonna be youth. And so you heard her say on that audio, okay, that'll be $150. Right. Now, I gotta be honest, in our community, we don't see that price going out very often. You know, sometimes it's as low as 20. Wow. But let's just say for the ease of math, that it's 150. Okay, so a pretty average quota that has to be made is somewhere around 1,000 to 1,500. So let's just say, for the ease of math, $1,500 a day is required before you're allowed to have any food, before you're allowed to have any water, before you're allowed to sleep or use the bathroom, or take a shower. $1,500 a day. Now, just for the ease of math, let's just say you divide that by $150 per trick, per sex act. Now, again, remember, it's probably a third, if not less than that. But just for that ease, that means at $150 a sex act, the child or somebody would have to do 10 sex acts a day in order to get their daily quota of $1,500. Now remember, we said there's no days off in this industry. So you take 10 tricks a day and you multiply it by 365 days in a year. And that's 3,650 sex acts that a child or someone would have to do in a year to hit their daily quotas and to avoid being beat or starved. Now, in Angel's case, she's been doing that for, so you multiply that by 20 years. And that's 73,000 sex acts. And I need you to understand that in those 73,000, there are people that are specifically selecting our trafficking victims because they are brutal and they are abusive. They think you're a throwaway. No one cares about you. No one's going to care if I beat you. No one's going to care if I stab you. No one's going to care if I rob you and forcibly sodomize you. No one's going to care because you're a throwaway. So when we talk about trauma upon trauma upon trauma, that's what we're talking about for the trafficking victim. Now, this is why they are after our kids. You take that 73,000 sex acts and you multiply that by that $150 a sex act, this is why they're after our kids. Because Angel has pulled in $10,950,000. But I gotta tell you, Angel's no millionaire. Angel's living in a tent city under the freeway for a while. So that is why they're after our youth, you know, and they tell their youth that they're gonna be famous or whatever it is, but they aren't prepared for the reality. So in our community, we definitely wanna make sure kids, and so make sure your little ones are aware of this, we have the Safe Place program. Now the Safe Place program is actually a national program. And in our community, the Safe Place program is sponsored by the Women's Center Youth and Family Services. And basically, whenever you see that logo, what it means is your safety is the #1 priority of that organization. So the Safe Place program has been expanded in San Joaquin County to include all of the RTD buses. So every single one of our buses that are rolling on the streets, you will see this logo next to the door. And basically, and it's happened already, people will just jump on the bus and it launches the protocol. They say, I need help. Bus driver closes the doors, keeps the bus rolling until they can get either a shuttle to meet the bus or they can transport the person to safety. So the Safe Place program, again, all of the RTD buses are designated safe places. And also in our community, Golden State Restaurants, they own all of the McDonald's from actually little South Sacramento all the way over to Stanislaus County, but definitely all of San Joaquin. Anybody goes into a McDonald's and lets a staff member know, help me, I need help, management will bring them behind locked doors and make sure that they are taken care of and safe. And then I run the Family Justice Center. So if any of you haven't heard about it, the Family Justice Center, we are in the old courthouse. We are on the first floor. It used to be the criminal division and the traffic division where people paid their traffic tickets. We basically took over that first floor space. And basically what it is whether you're a victim of domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault, human trafficking, stalking, elder abuse. When you're in trauma, I don't want you to have to go over there to make a police report, over there for shelter, over there to get some food, over there to get a restraining order. Now you will go through one set of doors to the Family Justice Center and everybody's together. So I oversee that on behalf of the DA's office. And we have the Women's Center, we have Child Abuse Prevention Council to provide free child care, especially for our human trafficking victims. We recognize they don't have their high school diploma, so we partner with County Office of Education so adults can go back and get their high school diploma, and we will do the free child care through our partnership with Child Abuse Prevention Council. We have clothing. We also have, we also have victim witness. We have the DA's office. We have the Stockton Police Department. We also have Family Law Legal Center. They basically provide low-cost family law representation. So if a victim really wants out, they need a restraining order, they need custody of their kids, they need a divorce, then we can assist them with that. And so This is, like I said, we talked about that volunteer action team, because I don't want anybody now getting all amped up and going driving out on Wilson Way, to get together with our team and do a safe activity. So our volunteer action team, they go out every quarter and they do community activities to combat human trafficking in our area. So we ask people to say something. You got that niece or you got that grandchild, or you realize maybe that's what's going on with your daughter's friend, say something. And don't worry about, oh, I don't know if I want to offend him. Just say, I noticed you got a new tattoo. Tell me what that's about. Honey, I noticed that you've been missing a lot of school. Really, sweetheart, what's going on? I'm really worried about you. You know, I've been hearing a lot about domestic violence and a lot about human trafficking, and I know that you're such a beautiful person that you might be vulnerable to this. So I just really want you to know that if there's something you need help with, let me, establish early that you are somebody safe for them to talk to. Say something to the victim. Definitely say something to the purchasers. In our society, it's like, oh, take him over to the brothel, for his bachelor party. These are just working girls trying to make a living. Or maybe it's the person that's going to the strip club and throwing dollars at the girl and going for that lap dance in the back room. Maybe it's the guy going to the massage parlor, letting off a little steam and getting a special happy ending. Maybe it's somebody that's buying the pornography. All of those industries are contributing to, because almost all the victims I talked to, those were methods that were used to pull them into this industry. That all supports human trafficking. So say something to the purchasers as well. And then we close with our resources nationally and then locally. Now I want you to know, I know that this has been some pretty heavy stuff. And now, a lot of times after people see it, they're like, boy, I wish my niece would have seen this, or my granddaughter would have seen this. And we knew that, and I can't be everywhere, Tori and I can't be everywhere all the time. So we partnered with Dignity Health, and they filmed me doing the presentation. So if any of you want to view this presentation or have somebody else view the presentation, you can go to the San Joaquin County District Attorney's website. Again, the San Joaquin County District Attorney's website. And right on our homepage, you scroll to the bottom, you'll see human trafficking, and then you can play the video on YouTube anytime that you want, okay? But I really want to let you know about the Family Justice Center and the great things that we're doing there. Like I said, it's a one-stop shop. And so we really want you to know about the evening programming. We offer parenting classes in the evening. We have the Ending the Game program that's also going on Tuesday evenings for trafficking survivors. And then later on, we were going to start it this month, but I got to be honest, with all the coronavirus, I think we're going to hold off until probably the end of April at earliest. But we're starting an urban drum corps for the Family Justice Center. And so basically, kids of trauma, we want to introduce them to music therapy. And so we're basically getting 5-gallon buckets, right? A dark blue one and a yellow one, because that's our logo colors. And we're basically teaching them how to play drums. And so basically they'll learn music as therapy, and if they want to take up music then later, then we hope to expand their experiences. So I want to thank you guys so much for your attention. I hope this was of value for you. Thank you, Pastor White, for allowing us to come here, and thank you for letting me bring Lavender in.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Joyce. Appreciate you. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question, Suzanne.
Yes, ma'am.
I heard, it's not a true fact, but I heard that at McDonald's, some child had gotten raped. So, in the bathroom, yeah.
I personally don't know about that. I mean, I gotta be honest, crime can happen anywhere, but,
Well, the reason why I'm saying is because, this is supposed to be, a safety place, okay, McDonald's, so how are these children going in?
well, it's, when we say it's a designated safe place, what we're saying is, if a child's walking home, right, and there's no time to call 911 because there's a creeper following them, we're letting them know, when we say safe place, that they can go into that McDonald's, go to a staff member and say, I need safety, there's somebody following me. And that the organization will, that they have a safe place protocol. And, I mean, I wish I could say that that means the entire place is always safe, always, but we, you know, what we're saying is that the staff are trained that if somebody comes to their counter and says, I need help, I need a safety, they know there's a protocol in place that they will then bring that person behind locked doors to make sure that they're safe. You know, but unfortunately, we can't say that, you know, because it's been a designated place where they can seek safety, that the whole venues are always safe, but that's horrible for that child. I feel bad about for that, but that's what the Safe Place program actually means. Yes, ma'am?
I just want to say, I live in Fresno, and in Fresno there's a lot of camps, but they even have a convention.
Yeah.
You know, and.
Players Ball?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Players Ball is basically, that's where pimps could go, and they basically want to see who's the biggest pimp, who's been the biggest player, and made and done the most. And really how you got an award, and the Players Ball award, was by what did you do to bring pimping into mainstream culture that helped to advance it. Wow. And so it's.
Well, let's hope they meet this year, like next week, and they get the coronavirus. Not very nice thing to say, but you know.
Can you repeat the slide, the one where all the safe places, since the kids are back in the room?
Okay.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And Suzanne, if you could, would you guys mind telling her what you learned today?
Okay.
Okay.
Angel?
Okay. Okay. So what I learned today, I can't really speak that well because I'm just gone, but what I learned today from watching all those, like not watching, but like listening to what she said and stuff, I learned that if you're in a tough like relationship with your family or your friends or anything, then like you don't come to strangers, because if they're trying to be nice to you, then they're gonna like, they can hurt you in any kind of way how you don't want to be hurt in. And like they'll try to comfort you and give you all these things that you need, but like you don't need at the same time. And they'll try to like hurt you in like heck of different ways, and like don't want to be hurting. And nobody will realize it because you'll think it's okay for them to do it. So if they're trying to pick you up or anything and you go in the car, then they can do anything to you. So I learned to not talk to strangers in tough situations, and don't go when you need help.
Excellent.
Very
Good job. Excellent. Outstanding. So we want to make sure as
Hold on one
kids.
second. We've got a couple more slides.
Oh, sorry.
I happen to be in the room with the most brilliant children in South Carolina. These kids are brilliant, brilliant.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, we'll have to talk
Okay,
about that.
fine. Okay. What I learned was to like, if somebody tries to come at you or just like knock on your door or something, like, and try to offer you or whatever how you say it to get in the car or whatever, is like, never do that, or you never know what's gonna happen. And yeah, you never know what's gonna happen. And then if somebody like, and then watching like the video or whatever of what she said, is like, I don't know how to explain it, but
What's the
yeah,
point?
like if let's say someone was hungry and then somebody knocked on their door or something and said like, are your parents home or anything, and then they like use the restroom or something, and like
What do you say?
you say, no, don't, you're not allowed in my house, get out, get off my property. I'm a call the cops on you.
So for kids, anybody else going to say anything, or you guys?
Please.
Oh, yes.
Yeah? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I learned that like sometimes like if you're going through like depression, you're like it's not worth it to like to do like things that you want to do, because like that's how exciting
feel it's not worth it because like that's gonna harm you for the rest of your life. And don't like get into strangers' cars. You never, and like don't talk to strangers because you never know what they might do or. Yeah.
I've got one more, Suzanne.
Okay.
Oh, Miss Marie.
You wanna go?
Oh wait, Kaylee was in the room too.
Yeah, Katie over too.
Okay, Kaylee. You wanna go ahead?
I learned even if that your parents are not home, still don't answer the door because my mom told me even if she's gonna go and get something, she probably won't get back because she probably takes long and not to answer the door to anybody, even if it's your family, just wait until they come home.
Great.
What about you, Kaylee? Are you too shy to talk?
You didn't do that for me.
You're my granddaughter, you got a big mouth with your granddaughter.
There's strangers here, she doesn't wanna talk to strangers.
Yeah, they're talkers.
Well, we wanna make sure then that you kids especially, I want you to know, so kiddos, I want you to know where some safe places are, right? Because sometimes, right, maybe you're walking home from school and some weirdo or creeper's following you in a car and there isn't even enough time to call 911. Let's just say, so I want you to know if you ever see this logo, it's called the Safe Place logo. If you ever see this logo, I want you to know that it's a place that you can go to seek safety and the adults that are in there will help you. So the Safe Place program, the Women's Center, maybe you've never even heard of that place, but that place is the one that sponsors the Safe Place program. But I want you guys to know that you'll see this logo on all of the buses. Every single one of the RTD buses that are in, all the buses in our city, you'll see that logo next to their door. If you're ever in danger or you're scared, jump on the bus if there's a bus by you and let the bus driver know, I need help. The bus driver will shut the door and get the bus rolling and keep you safe, okay? So the RTD buses are safe places, and we want you to know that every single one of the McDonald's in our community are also safe places. You go to one of the staff people that are working there and you let them know, I'm scared, I need help. Somebody that works at the McDonald's, one of the staff members there will bring you to the back and make sure that you're safe. And then also the place that I work, which is downtown at the old courthouse, that place is a designated safe place as well. But obviously, you know, if there's no RTD bus or there's no McDonald's, but there's a store or a restaurant, go in there and get safety. Go into where there's an established business that's open and get to somebody that's working in there and tell them that you need help. Okay? Yes, ma'am?
I'm just curious about this, I know that when that girl was making this call and, she was, nervous and uptight, why is it that they ask so many questions? Don't they already know?
No, well, while they're en route, right, they want officers to always have the latest information. So the officers are en route.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's already dispatched, but she wants to make sure, right, for example, when she said, okay, what are you wearing?
Yeah.
That was before she got to the location. So she wants to make sure that she's still wearing the same thing so that the officers can identify her. She has to find and notify the officers what kind of vehicle are they even looking for when they get to this site. And so what they want to know is, and she has to ask for her well-being because the dispatcher has to know, do I also have to dispatch EMTs? So a lot of the questions, because that's the requirement of the dispatchers, is they have to stay on the line until there's the handoff, till the officer's actually there on site. Especially if it's a fluid situation like this.
Because
Sometimes,
didn't she hang up?
yeah, but the victim hung up, then she called back, and then she called back again to Christine, and she was telling her, so that Christine is giving her information so that she can constantly teletype it to the law enforcement officers so they know this is where she's at the hotel. She's close to room 121. This is the car that you're looking for is a gray Mustang. So I know people don't understand, they're like, why is she asking so much? Why didn't she just get them dispatched? And in actuality, they were dispatched, but she's staying in contact with the officers so they know when they roll up on scene what they're looking for and what she looks like.
Okay, so Stockton PD has already been dispatched right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, oh yeah. They were already dispatched, and what she's doing is as she's talking to the victim, she's teletyping the latest information that she's
You can
getting
hear
from
her
her.
typing in the background.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You know, something that might, just a suggestion, something that might also be good about, as far as that safe place goes, is to let the children know as well, if they do have to use one of these safe places, that when they go inside, that they're very loud and very vocal about it. So there's more than just one person that knows what's going on.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Do you do this presentation at Stockton Unified, the teachers?
Yeah, so, we went, when we created this presentation, we went to all of the superintendents for San Joaquin County, we let them know that we were available to do it. And at that time, when we created the presentation 6 years ago, there was not a mandate that they had to do it. And so, I think a lot of people just, they're like, because there's a lot of parents that were gonna be like, you're not gonna talk to my child about that. You're just not going to, right? And it's their prerogative. All of us as parents, you know, we choose what we want to expose our kids to, and so we understand that. But then basically what has happened over the years, then now human trafficking education is required. And so, but there's still some parents who are like, well, it may be required, but my kid's still not gonna hear it. So they're allowing parents now to opt out of it. So Stockton Unified School District, last year, began authorizing us to come in and asking us. Now, and some of them, I gotta be honest, some of the school districts, they may be meeting the requirements. They just may choose that our presentation is not the one that they want to do. And as long as they're giving the kids some education so that the child isn't completely oblivious to this is what's important.
I think the teachers really need it so that they
Yeah,
can
and so we've,
identify what's going on.
yeah, so we've done training with school nurses, counseling staff, all of the principals for Stockton Unified School District and other districts as well. And so one by one, the schools are calling us. So I'm actually, we covered the entire the entire student population at Tokay. You know, and I gotta be honest with you, it's hard because, you know, we did the presentation four days, 7 times a day.
Wow.
Back to back to back, but we covered all 2,800 students, right? And so that's a way to really change the dialogue on a campus. But but you know, when we come out, we try to cover as many students as we can. And then we always make sure that the school has their counseling staff on site because, you know, for some kids, it may be the reality. But the answer to your question, short answer is yes. Stockton Unified School District is engaging us also this year. Yes, ma'am.
You know, another question, and that's because, you know, I have like people that they come and ask me, and I always wanna know that I'm answering, the right question. Oh God, I haven't seen your real bad.
That's okay. Honey, I have them all the time. Welcome. Yeah, okay.
Well, while you're thinking of it, I do have to still Suzanne. We have a family in crisis, they're homeless, they have a 2-year-old, they're living in a car, and so I need to take her with me to Best Western Hotel so we can get him a hotel for a week, till we can stabilize and get him in a housing situation, so we do have sorry, at 8 o'clock, they were texting me while this was going on tonight, I'm sorry. But we'll take a couple more, how's that, and then we'll hop in the car.
So how did you pick those, like the RTD and McDonald's? Because I work for the Department of Transportation, and I know that like our job is to be out, you know, outdoors on the roadways, and I know that a lot of our people, whether they're maintenance or
You're
engineers,
Caltrans, aren't you?
yeah, Caltrans. Like if they were educated, then, you know, maybe they could be an RTD where they
You're on
put
the
them in the
streets
truck
all the
and
time.
able to, you know, kind of take.
Yeah, we could train Caltrans in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I tell people, this
Yeah,
is
it's a
my
great
job
idea.
as a
Great
public
idea.
servant. And so what I'd be happy to do is give you my card. And if somebody, I mean, I've done trainings all over. I've been to, you know, the truckers, different trucking associations, you know, Tiger and all of the truckers. And so any organization that wants to educate their staff, I'd be happy to come out. Just, you know, set up the time and
Great idea.
I have no life, so I work.
Yeah,
you know,
yes.
all the
We've been
time.
out here every night this week, every night this week.
Yeah.
But, and I will circle back, I have a 2-year-old, so I might be looking for some clothing here, so, as I get to this family and figure out what we got going.
Do they take photos?
Yes, Suzanne takes clothes, she has a whole, design center, she has women's clothes, men's clothes, baby clothes, we have feminine hygiene products, diapers, we'll take all that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Slightly used or new.
Downtown is new.
Yeah, the only thing I won't take used is underwear.
Yeah.
No one, no used underwear, no used bras, no used socks.
Take a picture of Joyce. Oh, Joyce is downtown with us all the time, or you can just come to the office. We'd love to have you, and you can see what Suzanne built from the Justice
Hurry,
Center.
Suzanne.
Yeah, I know. I gave, she's like, I put her to work.
Yeah, they can only do
Charter schools, yes, we go to any school. We probably, Suzanne and I, the two of us, do tens of thousands of students, different presentations. Yeah. FedEx drivers, great idea, great idea.
We have
Yeah.
17 of them.
I tell you, I remember you back in 1982, when you were
Oh, I was an usher. I at the Stockton Ports Gate. That was my first job. It was great because they paid me under the table and I didn't get taxed. Probably not legal, but it was awesome. The only time I've ever seen 100% of my paycheck. Oh, the snack bar was awesome. Yes. And Big Ed just passed away. God bless him. Yes, I love
Chapel
this.
Mike
Rick.
got
Yes,
questions.
yes. Great job.
Just passed
Just before you ladies leave, can we pray for you real quick?
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
I would
What a
appreciate
beautiful
that,
gesture.
Pastor. Thank
But
you.
we want to say thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
What you're doing. You guys are amazing.
On Sunday, your picture's up on that screen. It is.
Oh.
You are.